Neptune in the 8th house of a natal chart is one of the most profound, enigmatic, and psychologically complex positions a planet can occupy. Often referred to as the house of death, debt, and desire, the 8th house governs the boundaries between the self and the other, as well as the veil between the physical and spiritual worlds. When Neptune, the planet of dreams, dissolution, and transcendence, resides here, the individual's approach to intimacy, shared resources, and the mysteries of existence becomes infused with a mystical, though often confusing, quality. The dissolution of boundaries. At its core, Neptune seeks to break down walls. In the 8th house, these are the walls of the ego that we usually protect during intimate encounters. For the native, intimacy is not just a physical or emotional act, it is a spiritual quest for union. There is often a longing to merge completely with a partner, losing the sense of where one person ends and the other begins. This can lead to incredibly soulful, transcendent relationships, but it also carries the risk of losing oneself entirely. The individual may struggle to maintain healthy boundaries, often absorbing the partner's trauma, emotions, or psychic weight as if it were their own. The mystical approach to the occult. The 8th house is the traditional home of the hidden things, taboos, the afterlife, and deep psychology. With Neptune here, there is an innate, almost effortless attunement to the unseen. These individuals often possess a natural mediumistic or intuitive ability. They don't just study the occult, they feel it. Life is viewed through a lens of symbols and synchronicities. Death, rather than being a source of terror, is often viewed as a transition or a return to a divine source. However, this same sensitivity can lead to a psychic sponge effect, where the native becomes overwhelmed by the collective unconscious or the vibe of a room, leading to a need for periodic withdrawal and solitude to clear their energy. Financial fog and shared resources. On a more mundane level, the 8th house governs shared finances, inheritances, and taxes. Neptune's influence here often manifests as a lack of clarity or a fog surrounding money that belongs to others. There may be a tendency toward idealism or avoidance when dealing with debts and contracts. The native might be incredibly generous, viewing money as a fluid energy rather than a rigid resource, which can lead to being taken advantage of by others. Conversely, they might experience strange or unexpected turns regarding inheritances, either receiving a windfall through mysterious circumstances or finding that promised resources vanish like a mirage. It is crucial for these individuals to seek grounded, professional advice for their financial dealings, as Neptune prefers to ignore the boring details of the material world. The path of psychological redemption. Psychologically, Neptune in the 8th house suggests that the path to healing involves the release of deep-seated fears through surrender. There is often a savior-victim dynamic at play in their private lives. They may be drawn to partners who need saving, or they may look for a partner to redeem them from their own inner darkness. The shadow side of this placement involves deception, either self-deception regarding one's true motives or being deceived by those they trust with their deepest vulnerabilities. The ultimate lesson of Neptune in the 8th house is the refinement of the soul through the fires of emotional alchemy. By learning to navigate the murky waters of the subconscious without drowning in them, the native can become a powerful healer or counselor. They have the unique ability to sit with others in their darkest moments, offering a brand of compassion that is non-judgmental and truly universal. They understand better than most that while the physical body and material possessions are fleeting, the spiritual bonds we forge are eternal. To find peace, the native must learn to ground their immense spiritual sensitivity in the reality of the present, ensuring that while their soul touches the infinite, their feet remain firmly on the earth. When Neptune occupies the 8th house, the zodiac sign on the house cusp, or the sign Neptune resides in, colors the specific flavor of how one handles soul merging, shared assets, and the great mysteries of life. The fire signs, inspired intensity. Aries, there is an impulsive, almost crusading approach to the occult and intimacy. These individuals may dive headfirst into deep emotional waters, often fighting for a spiritual connection. The risk here is a sudden burnout or disillusionment when a partner doesn't live up to an idealized hero image. Leo, intimacy is viewed as a grand, creative, and dramatic act of devotion. There is a deep desire to be seen as a soulmate or a spiritual muse. Financial boundaries can be blurred by a need for lavish displays of love or excessive generosity toward partners. Sagittarius, this placement seeks truth through the 8th house. There is a philosophical or religious tint to their view of death and rebirth. They may travel or study extensively to find the meaning of life's mysteries, often holding a very optimistic, if slightly unrealistic, view of shared resources. The earth signs, seeking form in the fog. Taurus, this is a complex placement because Neptune's fluidity clashes with Taurus's need for stability. There may be confusion regarding physical possessions or a tendency to idealize comfort. They must be careful not to let their spiritual values lead to financial neglect. Virgo, here, the native tries to analyze or fix the mysteries of the 8th house. They may be drawn to spiritual healing or psychological service. The fog of Neptune is met with a desire for precision, which can lead to anxiety if the native cannot categorize their deep, psychic experiences. Capricorn, there is a serious, almost heavy responsibility felt toward shared debts or the legacy of the family. These individuals may find that their professional life and their deep psychological transformations are strangely linked. They often seek to build something tangible out of their spiritual insights. The air signs, intellectualizing the infinite. Gemini, secrets and the occult are explored through curiosity and communication. There may be two sides to their intimate life or a tendency to talk through deep fears rather than feeling them. Financial matters may involve multiple, shifting streams of income or complex contracts. Libra, the focus is entirely on the ideal union. The native may have a romanticized view of partnership that ignores the messy reality of human nature. They are often the peacekeepers in shared financial disputes, sometimes at their own expense to avoid conflict. Aquarius, this yields a very detached, objective approach to the 8th house. They may be interested in the science of the soul or collective resources, like social security or communal living. Intimacy is often built on a foundation of shared ideals and friendship rather than raw passion. The water signs, deepest submersion. Cancer, deeply emotional and protective, these individuals feel the currents of their partner's needs instinctively. There is a strong psychic link to the family line and ancestors. They may use shared resources to create a sense of emotional safety, often struggling to let go of the past. Scorpio, Neptune is at home in the themes of this house, making for an incredibly potent psychic. The boundary between the living and the dead, or the conscious and subconscious, is paper thin. This is the archetype of the true alchemist, though they must guard against obsession or paranoia. Pisces, this is Neptune at its most powerful and most dissolved. The native is a true spiritual medium, but the risk of losing the self is at its highest. There is a total surrender to the mysteries of life, requiring immense grounding to prevent being swept away by the emotions of others. When transiting Neptune moves through the 8th house, it initiates a long, slow dissolution of the structures we use to protect our psyche and our power. This transit often lasts around 14 years, making it a sea change of the soul rather than a fleeting mood. It is a period where the hard boundaries of the material world, debts, contracts, and physical bodies, begin to soften into something more ethereal, for better or for worse. The spiritualization of intimacy. During this transit, the way you connect with others undergoes a profound shift. The 8th house governs merging, and Neptune is the planet of no boundaries. Consequently, you may find yourself seeking a spiritual union that transcends the physical. You are no longer satisfied with casual or surface-level interactions, you crave a soulmate experience. However, Neptune is the master of glamour and illusion. The shadow side of this transit involves projection, seeing a partner not as they are, but as a savior or a divine being. This can lead to a victim-savior dynamic where you either try to rescue someone from their deep psychological wounds or hope they will rescue you from yours. The lesson here is to find spiritual connection without sacrificing your own identity or ignoring red flags in the name of unconditional love. Financial fog and the invisible debt. On a practical level, the 8th house manages shared resources, taxes, inheritances, spouse's income, and loans. Neptune's influence here acts like a thick mist. The risk: you might become uncharacteristically careless with financial paperwork. This is a time when innocent mistakes in taxes or joint accounts can lead to long-term confusion. Deception can also occur, not necessarily through malice, but through a lack of clarity. The remedy: it is vital during this transit to have a grounded third party, like an accountant or a trusted, pragmatic friend, review any major financial commitments. Avoid get-rich-quick schemes or investments that seem too good to be true. Under Neptune's gaze, they usually are. Awakening the psychic senses. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of Neptune transiting the 8th house is the heightening of intuition. The veil between the conscious and subconscious becomes thin. You may experience vivid, prophetic dreams. Your sleep may become a theater for the soul, offering guidance on deep-seated fears or ancestral wounds. Psychic sensitivity: you might find yourself picking up on the secrets or hidden motives of others without them saying a word. Healing of trauma: this transit is an excellent time for deep therapy or shadow work. Neptune helps to dissolve the knots of old trauma by bringing a sense of divine compassion to your darkest memories. The ultimate surrender. The 8th house is traditionally the house of death, not always literal, but the death of the ego. Neptune's transit here asks you to let go of the need to control. You are learning that power doesn't come from dominating others or hoarding resources, but from a willingness to surrender to the flow of life. By the time Neptune leaves this house, you will likely have a much more refined understanding of the unseen world. You will have learned that while you cannot control the tides of shared destiny, you can certainly learn to swim in them. The goal is to emerge from this transit with your spirit intact, having traded the armor of the ego for the fluidity of the soul. Subscribe, like, and share.